Welcome back to the Living Life Juicy podcast. This is a chance when I give my guests an opportunity to turn the tables. So Bryn Lottig is back, and she's going to ask me 3 questions that she's curious about. So Bryn, take it over. You are now the question asker.
All right. So I'm interested about your business structure. So tell me from like an entrepreneur to entrepreneur, how do you have your different podcasts, YouTube channels, your speaking, your book? How do you have that structured under the umbrella? And like, are they different entities, similar entities? How do you manage finances and scheduling? Like, tell me the back end of all your business, because you have some hats on too.
Yes. My first response to that is, how do I manage it? Not very well. But so this gets back into one of the things that I truly believe is that you have to have a crystal clear purpose and mission. And neither of them are bumper stickers, but your purpose is the kind of the compelling vision that leads you into the future. So my purpose is I guide people and groups to their next best step in growth and sustainability. Now that's, to me, that's compelling. And the whole guide thing is words. And so my purpose statement is crucial. And then what I found is that my mission statement, which is a definition of your business, it's not a brochure. It's like, this is what we do. And it was too broad. And mostly because I'm very curious about stuff. And we shared in our last conversation about how it's like, man, I don't want to miss out on stuff. My thing was that I can find a way to make that fit into what I'm doing. I can do that. And it created this. So the way that I rationalized it first is, well, I started off as praxis training.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's kind of when I first started, because I would design and deliver training, which worked really well. And I love the concept of praxis. But then as I started some different things, I went towards Into Wisdom group, because it's a group. I can put a bunch of stuff underneath that. Praxis was one of them. But then I started there was way too many things under there. So this past probably 2 years, I've been taking a look at that bunch of stuff. And I came up with my purpose statement. It needs to fit the purpose. Now my mission is to, I get to that purpose by creating, designing, and delivering resources and experiences that help people grow. So it's got to fit into those things now. And there's certain things, like the podcast is personal development. I don't use this podcast as, it's not, does nothing for my business. It's more about how can I be better at listening and asking questions. So now I've got pretty streamlined. I'm thinking about cutting it back even more. I've got Into Wisdom advising and facilitating. That's the consulting, coaching, thought partnering branch. I've got Into Wisdom learning, which used to be Into Wisdom publishing, but I don't want to be considered just a publisher. I create the learning experiences and resources. So that's where the books come from. That's where some of the learning videos, the courses, I can help people put a course out, and that fits well with what I do. And the last one is Into Wisdom Productions. And that came out through the pandemic, because I'd been on the desert island of virtual for a while. And so I was helping people figure it out for themselves. And then I got pulled into helping, like with conferences, doing hybrid and virtual conferences and helping figure that part out. Now I'm thinking about like pulling that off of the group, still doing it for some groups, but that will even help streamline myself even more. So that's kind of how I'm managing it, thought managing it. And a lot of it is cutting things out that don't fit, that are sucking away my energy. This way I can focus on just a couple of things, but still have the fun. Like, this is fun for me. This isn't. So those things, which I could fold them in, but I don't want to.
And that's interesting, because with Kikori, we have this platform, but there's also like the opportunities to do professional development, or actually programming with the kids, or, the curriculum side that is separate from the platform. But I also have, like wondered about writing a book and going out and following like Amy Clymer emceeing stuff and working in some of those things. So just it's really interesting to have been watching you over these years to see how you've fit those all in, because yeah, it's not always intuitive how to be able to do all of the things, but making sure that they all feed, the same end game.
And it can be different. This is where a good thought partner helps out, somebody that you can, share these things with and help you develop that personal mission and purpose. So that, and it's different than the work, it's different than whatever the two organizations that you're most closely associated with, because it's about you.
Right.
And that's where your personal development and your personal satisfaction and your family, all that kind of stuff plays in there.
Right. Right.
Next question. Good one.
Okay. Yeah. The next question was, how many books have you written, and what have you learned about writing and publishing? To talk to somebody who might be interested in exploring that.
Yeah. So in the late 90s and early 2000s, I wrote 2 books for youth specialties. And they were on basically one's called the Youth Workers Experiential Handbook, and 1 and 2. The first one was wonderful, and it went out there. It's still used by a couple of colleges that train youth ministry people. And it was a great experience, great editors. But then the second book, it was right when Youth Specialties was being sold to a larger publishing house. And like I just published it, and they did this, they combined contracts. They didn't have me go out doing support on it. I wasn't speaking at any conferences to help with the marketing and sales, all that kind of stuff. I basically got hosed by the publisher. So I was not happy. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to do my own from now on, but it's not going to be self-published. I'm going to create a boutique publishing house specifically for me, but also for other people who need back table books or groups that want to publish curriculum or whatever. It's basically, I want to flip the royalty process so that the author gets the lion's share rather than the publishing. What that means is I pull back. I don't do the distribution. That'll be up to you. It'll be an in-house thing. I'll help wherever I can, but that shifts the balance. But I got it to where most of the time when you publish a book through a publisher, you get maybe 50 cents to $1 per book. And I get that now. I get why that is. But I try and flip it so where you get, the author will get anywhere between $3 to $7 per book, up to, depending on how they move it out there. So that's that first piece of writing and publishing. You can say.
Well, you used a phrase back table book, and I didn't know what that meant.
Okay, so when you go speak someplace, oftentimes the speaker will have a table in the back with their merchandise, and it's that catch-22 of if you want to have credibility, be published, and if you want to be published, you have to have credibility. And so this is that opportunity for somebody not to self-publish. There is a publishing house name on it, and it's got it's laid out, it's got all that kind of stuff, and yet you can have that on your back table, you can have it on your website. And like a lot of the times, if you go speak someplace, they'll pay for copies of your book, and you can put them out on all that kind of stuff. So that's what a back table book is.
Got it. Yeah, I've looked at some online programs, and it looks like a really expensive business card to me.
Well, it is, and it's a matter of it's a credibility piece. You don't have a problem with that. If it's just a matter of getting your voice out there, this is another way where you don't. Right now, in order to get published by a publishing house, you almost always have to have an agent, and that's an almost possible thing to do. So I went and I started this in 2008, this publishing, and I didn't publish anything for myself until 2020. So I had those 2 books. And then in 2020, I was supposed to do a 3-day facilitator training workshop. And I had I had about a 30-page handout that I would use. So before I was doing this one, I revisited that and it turned into a 100-page workbook. And so I published that, but we were supposed to do it in late March of 2020. And we all know what happened there. So what I did is, this is what I landed on. It's a workbook, so a lot of blank pages. In fact, this will look weird because of the green screen, but so this is what it is. It's designing experiences and facilitating growth. And it's just a workbook. It's got some activities and stuff in the back, but it's got blank pages. It was intended to be a workshop. So what I did is, the group that was having me down, they said, let's do it, and let's do it virtually. Okay. So I took this book and I made it an interactive PDF. So now when you buy this, you get a download QR code or link that you can download the book. And now, like, there's all kinds of random connections. So if you click on weird places, it'll bring you weird places. But ultimately, almost all the diagrams have a link to an article or a video.
Oh, nice.
So now the content that I would normally put in person, you don't get the activities, but it's in there. That influenced this. I call them simple books. And what it is you go deep instead of long, because I found out that executives say they love to read, but they only want to read what they want to read. So I've got these, I think I've got a couple here. This is the simple book on personal development. Okay. I use this in my coaching, but ultimately it's this long. Okay. But it's simple, because this is all you need, this is all you have to get. But you have the QR codes, or if you get the electronic version, there's links. You click on the pictures, you click on the QR codes, and it takes you a layer deep. And then there's links in those documents that take you another layer. So everything is at least 2 or 3 layers deep. So it's a deep book rather than a long book. I took that in Pottery Panda, and I just wanted you to be able to enjoy the story of a raccoon starting a business.
Okay.
And so at the back of every chapter, there's a QR code that'll take you to all the activities that Peter the Pottery Panda did. And those take you to articles and links and videos. And ultimately, the bottom layer is a interactive PDF workbook where if you walk through those different things, you'll walk away with a strategic plan that you've already implemented or started to implement. So that's the history of the publishing, and it's never a simple story. They never are.
No, but I do like how dynamic technology has made books. Even the one that I mentioned in our previous conversation, I have both the physical copy and the audio copy, and I love being able to flip between those mediums. But to make the content so much more dynamic by being able to incorporate QR codes and links, and
it's a choose your own adventure, basically. Yeah. So you can, if you're curious about something, you can dive in. If you're not, it's not stuck in the book. And so Pottery Panda, I think, is going to be like 90 pages physically, but there's probably 200 to 250 pages of content if you go through all the different links.
That's interesting.
So
thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah. Last question.
My last question is what parenting lessons have made their way into your professional work, or what lessons have you learned from parenting that you're able to implement professionally?
Yeah. So I got a late start. I've got a 9-year-old son. And so I'd been doing youth ministry and working with kids for decades before I had one of my own. I think the biggest lesson that I learned is I really don't know anything about kids. It's so fascinating. And all the tips and tricks and concepts that I use on other people's kids, they don't work because I'm dad. And it's given me a lot of grace to other parents of the kids that I've worked with in the past. And I think back and I go, whoa, I missed that one big time. But so I think it's given me, the lessons I've learned from parenting have made me a lot more graceful when I work not only with kids, but this is an old story that has found new purpose for me. I was at a it was Christian camp, and I'm one of the camp leaders, and we would have the churches would bring up their own counselors. And this is when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and there's this 60-year-old senior pastor that's working with third to fifth graders. And I said, man, what are you doing here? And he says, if I can't explain something to a kid, how do I expect to be able to explain it to an adult?
Mm.
And it's like so powerful, because oftentimes I try and be way too fancy in my explanations for adults, when if I just explain it as simply as possible to where a 9-year-old gets it, that generates questions. When I talk with somebody, I don't want to generate solutions. I want them to ask better questions. And that's a lesson that I was reminded of. And now when I talk to my son, I don't want to give him answers. I want him to come with better questions. It's really annoying because he loves questions, but I'll call him on the bad questions. I just said that. What do you think? So.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Those were excellent questions. And I think I'm excited to have people respond to them. If, my dozens of followers jump in here, I think nobody's asked me those before. So it brings out some new stuff. So thank you so much for giving me this little bit extra time with 3 questions from Bryn, and look forward to talking with you some more, because we have some other things that I think we need to explore.
I would love that very much.